Hello. I don't know if anyone's out there right now or not. I don't see any numbers. I was supposed to go live at 11 and I missed it. I got two people out there. Hi. This is going to be kind of the year end show for Teri and I, except it's really the year end show for Teri because she's not here. We had made arrangements to do this show, and then yesterday she popped up sick in the evening and wrote me and said, "Can you do it by yourself or I'm gracefully bowing out?" And so I knew how distraught you would be if we weren't here, I think. So we're here, and hi, Sharon. Hello, everybody. Jessica, Jolynn that are showing up. Got 10 now. Okay, to kind of give you an agenda, what Teri and I were going to talk about today. Well, first of all, I want to remind everyone that today is a new moon day, and at 4:26 p.m. Central Daylight Time, we have the last new moon of 2024. And may I say, this has last year I was watching all the astrologers doing what they're doing now, and so are the readers, writing up a list of this is what you need to watch out for, and this is what's going on, and everybody kept saying the first 3 months will be difficult, but it'll get a lot easier after that. And I even kept some of these, so I went back and said, was I totally out to lunch? Was I just trying to hear what I wanted to hear? Anyway, it ends up, and then they'd get to their next quarterly report or their next semi-annual report, and they'd all be going, well, it's going to get a little tighter, a little more tense, a little more duh. And I kept thinking, okay, and they were never dark, and they were never said that the sky's going to fall in. As a matter of fact, we had to wait for that to happen till November. But it was just, it got to the point I was kind of like, do I want to listen to these? So anyway, this year, and I've studied just enough astrology to be dangerous. And so I could follow some of what they were saying, but sometimes they were saying stuff and I'm going, well, they don't read cards. I don't read charts. Let's all get along that way. Anyway, so this is the last new moon, and 2024 personally, it wasn't a bad year for me. And for some of my family members, it was a good year. For some of them, it's been a difficult year. So I think it sort of depends on where you're standing on the chart. But I think when people look to readers or astrologers or other people, all they show is a path that could be taken. It does not show the path that will be taken, because that's what free will is about. We all have our own choices on which way we want to go. And that's kind of what I was last night. Scott and I did a thing where I rolled for the collective. I rolled the garden every month, and it followed pretty much what I've been seeing when I've been helping people with, like, how does your next 12 months look, which I'm still doing. And for a whole lot of people, there was like the first part of the year was that they were getting a lot of plans that they'd been working on for a while, something they'd had going on in the background that wasn't maybe forefront, it wasn't what they were most talking about, but they were getting to that. And then come about April or May, it's like the sky opened up and it got sunny, and a lot of their plans came through. And by the end of the year, they were great. So by the end of 2025, I keep seeing everybody, at least the individuals that had chosen to come and be read by me. Now, when you're a reader and you read a whole set of readings on people like that, and they all they have a similar sort of theme, you always feel really good if it's a great theme, because it's the law of attraction. You tend to pull towards you what you're going to have come to you. and it's some of the quantum physics, which I watched a bit of last night because I was going to try to figure out how to work quantum physics in this. And then my eyes crossed and my head fell to one side, and I said, no way. I don't know if you know about my history with quantum physics, but my husband died in 2004, and he knew for a while how sick he was, or he had a sense of what was coming. From the time he got really sick till he died, it was like exactly 3 months. But before that, he kept saying, there's a way to figure out what you do. There's a way in physics, which was his world. He built some of the first microchips that went into cell phones and things. He built the first front end that built microchips in Japan. I mean, he was like at that level of how we think about these things. And he kept saying, you could figure it out. And he used to make me watch shows on PBS, on Nova, about physics and that kind of advanced science. And I kept telling him, I don't really care. And he'd say, but it's really important because, and I said, important to who? It's not important to me. As long as I flip the cards and they seem to make sense, I'm fine. And I was like, okay, honey. So, and to the end, when he was dying of cancer and he had a stroke, he would sit there with these books and he'd say, read this book. And I read some of them after he died. And I kind of wish I had been a better student, because what he was talking to me about 20 years ago is now what everybody's talking about how entanglement and all these different things make all the difference in the world for us. And if we could only understand it, we'd all understand how we don't move through space and time. Space and time move through us, through our energies, and that we can help direct that. And that's a little bit about what I'm going to talk about today. But I'm not going to talk about it in the terms he would have used, because your heads would loll and your tongues would fall out and you'd fall out of your chair too. I mean, it's not that if you understand that stuff or it's where your brain goes, it's wonderful. But if not, what can I say? Also, speaking of things passing and things going by, take a moment to remember Jimmy Carter, however you remember him. My experience with Jimmy Carter was, I was 27 years old, and a friend of mine had for Christmas given me a national newspaper that came to my house every week. And it was a real way, it was a totally different perspective than you could get in any of the press down here. And that's when reading a newspaper was how you learned information. And the very first one I got talked about this governor from Georgia that was going to run for president. And I thought, well, that's unusual. And so I started following him. Well, lo and behold, a couple months later, he was going to be speaking at SMU, and you could just come. They was going to speak in a big auditorium I knew, and I went to school there, and I knew it well. I lived on the edge of the campus. I was at home, a young mother with a young son who is now an old political consultant heading to Wisconsin. So I bundled him all up in the stroller, and we strollered over. It was about 8 blocks from our house. And when I got there, there was this, it's one of those old, built at the turn of the 1900s stairways up McFarland Hall. And these students came, they said, oh, let us help you. And they carried his stroller all the way up the stairs, and we went in, and I got to watch Jimmy Carter speak. And I was really moved. And I thought, this guy's talking about stuff we need to hear about, not the stuff that we normally hear about, which is all the distraction. Even as a young child, I understood misinformation and distraction. And so, and I told Sean, his first political rally he ever went to was Jimmy Carter. And unfortunately, well, Jimmy, he had a long life. He lived to be 100 years old. The man was brilliant. He also was a physicist, if you knew that. In the Navy, he worked in nuclear submarines. He he had one of those kind of all-encompassing minds, but he never lost his roots to his peanut farm or the people that he grew up with in Plains, Georgia. And that's what we need so desperately, is someone who is connected somehow back to people who've really had to work and earn a living. And I just want to thank him at that time for showing me a face of someone that I thought was worth supporting. And I was glad to have voted for him. I just really could not understand how people could have so turned on him when the stuff that was going on around him. I remember sitting in econ classes in college, and I went to college from 1968 to 1971, and I graduated in 1971. But I remember sitting in a class, and they were talking about how the fact our country was trying to fight poverty on the ground and the war in Vietnam, that it was going to break our economy, and we were going to get hit with this enormous wave of inflation, as capitalist societies do when they get into certain ruts and then certain things back up. And that is the wave of inflation that his presidency got caught up in. And it still pisses me off that people can't see past their nose. Well, eggs cost more than they did last week. So I'm going to, that makes no sense to me. I see things in very long-term patterns. I saw Jimmy Carter in a very long-term pattern. I think we're incredibly blessed to have him. And all I can hope is if he can use his energy from the other side to start help guiding us through 2025 and help us with the hard breaks and the hard things we're going to have to look at, and then help ease us into the transitions that are going to be really positive for us. Okay. So we've got the new moon. We've given thoughtful reasoning to Jimmy Carter. Okay, everybody says, and I mean everybody when you listen to them, this is what you need to do. The first thing people always tell you to do if you want to clear your life out is to journal, which is actually a very, very good way to put your thoughts down and start to see them. But for some people, getting organized enough to journal every day, people get very excited at the first, and then I'll talk to clients that I work with and I go, how's the journaling going? And I know it's, they're going to say, well, I kind of skipped a few days and I lost where my train of thought was and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, I came across in the last couple months, I've been looking for other things to tell you to do other than journal. I will still suggest it. And journaling to me can be as simple as pulling a card if you have an oracle deck, or pull a tarot card, or there are even sites where you can go card of the day and they will tell you. And so randomly out of the universe, you're getting handed a thought to think about that day. Those are all things you can do that are, to my mind, the equivalent of journaling. But I want to put a challenge through to this group that meets with Teri and I. And it's about visioning your future. And one of the things that I would like us to do, and I've set time aside tomorrow to do it. I'm going to have a show tomorrow, but I'm going to set some time in it. I've got grids and things to work on. I've got several things. So I'm kind of balancing things out, and I'm trying to figure out my schedule right now. So I'm just as bad as the rest of you. Just want you to know. Don't think it's perfection here. But what I want everyone to consider doing, and it doesn't have to be a long missive that will be found in in history and time and published somewhere. But I would like you to write a letter to yourself, dated December 30th, 2025. And I want you to write down all the things you've enjoyed this year, all the things you've liked this year, or major accomplishments you've had, however you would like to do it. And I guess what I'm thinking in my head, you can write whatever you want. But mine's, I don't know if you guys remember, but in the 50s and 60s, when everybody sent each other bazillion Christmas cards, everybody would send along their family Christmas letter. where they would tell you about, the idealism of how all of their 7 baby boomer children were doing and what they were doing in school, and how, you know, oh, Martha's really taken on a strong role with the PTA. I mean, and they were the most self-congratulatory letters known to man. And they were absolute. I used to love to read them because I lived in a town that was just small enough that you knew the truth. And we would sit there and we'd read it. Oh, really? And you'd see how people would cleverly word things that, just sort of about, one person was talking about their child that was in college was taking a chance to relook at the past year. That meant they flunked out and they'd gotten back in, because back then you could flunk out of college. It wasn't so expensive. You could go back and try again. That's just one example. But I don't want you to write the sappy kind of letter. I want you to write a real, true, put your feet in the ground. Think about it. What would you like to be reading about yourself a year from now? What would you like to read about that's going on? Yeah, Chris, somebody, Roni, this is true. You guys, these Christmas letters were an alternative universe. And I tell you, when I knew Christmas letters were going away, I had one of my very best friends, her little sister was a piece of work. When their mother died when they were in high school, and from then on, it was Katie bar the door. I mean, their house was nuts. But in particular, her younger sister got into stealing the family car, and her family had a Corvette. And she would steal the Corvette and roar around town, and she would outrun cops. She's a very interesting little character. And her father, who could never adjust to the fact his wife had died, he just kept traveling all around the world to medical conventions and different conventions that had to do with what he loved. And so Susie ended up, when we were in college, she started college. She never finished. All the other 3 kids in the family finished. And she went on to, she ended up dating this guy and then living with a guy in Bisbee, Arizona. And I don't know if you know where Bisbee, Arizona. I would not know if I had not known Susie moved there. But she moved there, and this was back when there was a lot of better living through chemistry going on. And she was apparently a part of that group of people pushing that. And she moved to Bisbee. And so her dad finally sat down and he wrote out the family Christmas letter. Well, my friend was doing real well, and she at this point was in some kind of massive sale. She was making tons of money. And she was still flying. She still flew small planes and helicopters. And he was talking about her. He's talking about her older sister had a couple kids, and they were going along. And the older son had started a career, and he and his wife, who he'd gone to high school with and then married after college, after having dated all that time, and all the wonderful things they were doing. And most of that was really true. I mean, he wasn't making it up. And then he goes, and Susie. Susie is still shacked up with her boyfriend in Bisbee, Arizona. When I read that, I just rolled off the couch laughing, and I realized we will never have another Christmas letter again. And I don't ever remember getting many after that. I think her dad kind of put the kibosh on. We're all going to write wonderful things in our Christmas letters. But I have digressed. I never do that. Do I ever wander? Did you notice that? Anyway, you can, if you choose to be part of my December 30th, 2025 letter challenge. Or you can say letter opportunity. Doesn't have to be a challenge. Doesn't have to be any of that stuff. But write down all of the things you would want to see yourself at on December 30th, 2025. And write it out as a letter, stick in an envelope. Now, there are people who do different things with these things when they do these kind of projections for themselves. Some people will burn it because they think it should be destroyed. Just go to the universe. You've had the thought, you've sent it out and send it to the gods. Other people say, fold it up, stick it in a drawer, don't look at it. And on next year, when comes New Year's, you've got something to look forward to. You get to open up your letter. I think I'm in the stick it in the back of the drawer and open up the letter. And I'm going to tell you something. This is a story I've talked about before, but it did work. Someone had talked to me about, I was looking to move, and moving is an incredible trauma for me. I don't move well. I lived in the same town, basically lived in two different houses for the first 18 years of my life. And yes, we want to do a letter visionary guide. That's a good way to put it, Linda. My words are coming through my brain faster than my mouth can get them out. But anyway, I wrote out a list, and I'll tell you who told me to do it. It was Radley Valentine. I'd just seen him in Denver live and had a chance to talk with him. And he said, just write out no matter how extreme, no matter how off the wall you think I could never afford that, no matter what. He said, write it down. This is the apartment you want. This is the place you want to rent next, whether it's an apartment, a house, whatever. Put all the features in. And he said, if you say you're living with your daughter, sit there with your daughter and write out all of the possibilities of what you want. So I wrote out a list. And one of the things my daughter wanted was we were moving so she could be closer to work. So we wanted a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, hopefully had 2 master suites in it. We wanted it to have a dining room. I like dining room tables. I don't have one now. It makes me crazy. Holiday meals are like eating on your lap is not a holiday meal. And we wanted a fireplace. My daughter wanted a fireplace. I wanted a patio where I could grow a little herb garden. We wanted a little extra room, just a little den room or some little extra room off the living room where I could set up my stuff so I could do my work. Now, this, mind you, was all before COVID. So this was, we were still coming and going from our house. And then we put, she wanted to be no more than 15 minutes on street roads. That means no highways from her job. And so we wrote it all out, and we had how many miles, if you figure normal street traffic in Dallas, how far that would be to make that amount of time and stuff. And I wrote it all out on a Sunday afternoon when she and I were sitting there talking about it. And then after that, I got up on Monday morning and I was going to go out and look in the area, and I woke up and it was a wet, cold, nasty fall in Texas. When it's cold and wet and fall in Texas, it's not a good time to go look at anything. So I rolled over and said, I'll just sleep in this morning. And no, my guide said, no, you're not. You're going to go find where you're going to go live. And so my daughter had written out kind of a list of places she'd found on the internet. And so I wrote out 4 of them because they were all within it. And I thought, I'll go out and look and see if we can even come close to what we want. So I went to the first place, and it would have been okay. A little dark, but they said they couldn't guarantee me something on the ground floor. Well, if you know the story of my knees, my artificial knees work great as long as you're walking on flat, level surfaces. They don't like stairs very much. And that's just laziness on my part. I could have gone and I got a whole lot more physical therapy than we normally do. And for a while I could do stairs, but now I'm not so hot on stairs. So I was like, nah. So I said, we'll keep our name on the list, because I was looking in October and we did not have to move till January. And I told you I hate moving, so I like to stretch it up. Went to the second place, and they had no one in the building that could show me anything in the building. And I thought, well, that's not useful. So I was really about to turn it all in. And then this clouds parted and it quit raining. And I thought, well, I'll go look at the last place since I'm out here. So I went down to the last place, and I pulled in and the buildings looked like buildings I used to live in when I was younger. That was just a wonderful place that I thoroughly, and lots of green space around the buildings. They had a beautiful pool. They had a whole gym to work out in and all that stuff. But I went in to meet the woman who ran the place, and she said, I showed her kind of my list. I'd cleaned it up, but it, just basically said the basics of what we really, really wanted. And she said, the ring of buildings you see around the apartments are townhomes. And when this place was built in the early 70s, they built these townhomes all around us. But she said they never lease. I've had people living in those townhomes 15 years. And she said, but they have all of what you want is in one of those townhomes. And I said, well, can I see your 2-bedroom that you might have? And she said, no, not today, because we've been so full that we're just now turning a couple of units and I can't let you in until they're finished. And I said, well, okay. And I said, can you call me? So she called me. She said she called me, and 2 weeks later, she called me and said, can you and your daughter come by at lunch? And we'll look at that. We have a 2-bedroom that I know is going to be open. It's a very common unit, so one should be open in January. So I said, okay. So we went up there and walked through the place. It would have been perfectly fine. The lovely 2-bedroom. We would be upstairs, downstairs. The buildings were 2 stories high, but where the 2 bedrooms were, they were like that. And I thought, well, that's not bad. We'd only be on top of each other and stuff. And so I said, this looks good. And so when we get back to the office, she and I were going to talk about how to set up some paperwork. So when one came available closer to January, she got to her desk and she said, oh my God, I don't know who's on your side. And I said, what do you mean? And she said, I have a letter here from a couple who've lived here for 11 years, and they're in exactly the unit you want. They've got a patio, they've got a fireplace, they've got everything you want. And they have to move back to wherever they came from. One of them's leaving in the next few days, but the other one cannot move until January when their contract's up with where they're working. And I said, well, really? And she said, yeah. And I said, could we see it? And she said, no, but I can show you the floor plan and you'll understand what you're getting. And so we sat down, we talked about it. And since I was there in November, and this was all transaction was going to happen in January, they'd been there so long. All she was going to charge me was $100 pet deposit. And the couple was moving right at Christmas or by the 1st. So they would have time to get it cleaned up because my lease was up where I was living until the 20th of January. So, and when I walked into a place that was in the rent range I'd put on my list. It had 2 bedrooms. I had a full master suite in the first floor with one of the biggest closets I've ever had in my life, a giant 1970s walk-in closet. It had a lovely little bathroom. It had a whole vanity thing and a big linen closet and stuff. And it had a dining room, and it had a full kitchen. And my daughter's room was upstairs, and she had a full big bedroom with a big master bathroom off of it. And even a little sitting area at one end. She had like a bay window out where she made a little seating area in her own bedroom. And then downstairs, the living room was a great size. For us to take care of, it was perfect. It had a fireplace in it. And it was a real fireplace, like with wood. And so I really didn't see the inside of it until the day the movers moved us in. And I had already started doing crystals and rocks at that point. So I had boxes. They were small boxes, but they were full of rocks. And a small box of rocks is heavy. And these guys were helping me move. And this one guy said, what do you have in these boxes? Rocks? I said, actually, yes, that's what I have in them. And so when they helped me move, I opened up the boxes so they could see the rocks. And there was these big mover guys passing around these rocks going, these are wonderful. So what I'm telling you from all of this is you can. So what I'm anticipating when I read about doing this letter for next December, that's what I envision writing. I'm going to spend some real time writing on this, and I'm not going to share with anybody until years from now when I talk miraculously how everything happened. But it's a real chance. And the way this works with quantum physics is you have to make the space available in your energy for things to happen. And my attitude before I wrote that list was, we'll never find everything we want. Well, instead, I just said, this is everything we want. Where is it? That's the letter we can write this year. Now, I was thinking about, I think I'm going to roll in the garden in quarters. I did all 12 months. And if you want to see that, you can go. It's at the very beginning of when Scott Allen and I did a show last night at 6. And we did it for the collective. And he read tarot and I read the garden. And it ended up being just a wonderful. I mean, we talk about some things are going to be rough and they're going to require, but one of the stones that kept showing up in the garden is the mind. And when the mind shows up in water, waters where energetically denotes movement. And it kept showing up month after month. And I mean, they're rolling all over the board. That one kept showing up month after month. And the reason it was there is it is time for us to let go of limitations. We have been so huddled in fear. I can tell you, I wake up some nights and I have to do a chakra meditation just to open up my root chakra because I've so bound it up with, no, nothing's going to come through here. I don't want to know about it. Da, 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 da. And I'm going to roll quarters. I'm going to roll January to March, April to June. I'm going to roll the seasons, winter, spring, summer, fall, for the coming year. And I hope, my fondest wish is that I first of all want it to be the truth. The second of all, I want it to be something that can help you enlighten. It's for the collective. Take what you can use. Maybe it'll trigger off things when you hear about the different seasons and how they lay out for you. So I'm going to pull into the garden, which is cleverly already set up because I didn't take it down from last night. Ta-da! For those of you who are not truly experienced in the garden, winter, spring, summer, fall, so you can tell time with the garden, these are the elements of the shamanism: fire, water, air, and earth. Fire is ancestors, our past lives, things that have happened in the past. Water is energy moving out, energy shifting, energy going in a new direction. Air is our mental power, using our mind, being able to sail around all these things using our mind. And earth is where everything emerges from. So when crystals fall on earth, that means that that's where it's growing from. Then these are the chakras: root, sacral chakra, solar plexus, heart, throat, third eye, and crown. And then because it's a circle and I had an extra space, I put the tree of life in there. I was told to when I envisioned how this divination tool works. Then in between are things that happen to us. The path forward, something that's false, restate something, relook at it, redo it. Past, things from our past or things that have passed and we should let go. Go for it. Great spot. True, future and present. And for those of you who don't know, there are 6 gardens left. And when the gardens are gone, the gardens are gone. There's about 300 of them out there. I am going to, in January, start a class for people who have gardens. I'm going to contact all the people who got gardens before because I am 3 years more familiar with this. I know how this sucker can work and also what it doesn't do. And it's going to be going down to the visions that I had. I had an for every space that's on here, I had a vision and a dream, and I wrote them all down. They're all together in a book now, and I've actually improved it and got it. And so each person will get a PDF who has a garden of the spaces in here, what they mean, and then I'm going to teach a class to teach others how to take those elements and work with them. I've had gardeners all along. I have a gardener group right now. We haven't met for a bit because of the holidays and etc. But we meet. There's a small group that meets every Saturday, and that's the only thing that I have a membership for, because it takes a little more dedication to get there. But so for those of you who are saying, why am I watching this woman throw rocks on a cloth? That's what it's about. And so the first thing we're going to do, we're going to see if this candle will stay lit. I'm using up all my old candles from my 9 candles. And this was from when the candles were blue. Okay. That's the other thing you can do to alleviate your mood is candle gaze. When I was little, my mother accidentally found out about candle gazing. She had no idea what she was doing, but she used to light candles and tell me to watch it. And I'm a little ADHD if you haven't noticed. And it would calm me down, and I could see things in the candle, and it gave me, as a small child, a way to focus. You can focus as an old child, which I sometimes do with candles. So, okay. I'm asking for the collective. I'm looking for a collective reading of the 5 elements of the stones: body, mind, spirit, grounding, and clarity for the first quarter of 2025. Oh dear. We're all scrunched together. Yeah. This makes so much sense. Our spirit is in air. And when our spirit's in air, that's really a great place for our spirit to go, because it transforms our thinking when our spirit's in air. Now we've got all the other. This is body, mind, spirit's over here, grounding and clarity, and they are all scrunched up. Well, not exactly. I'm going to read grounding first, because it's coming out of the earth. So much more is going to be brought forward, but this is the cluster F that we have to live through. And what we've got is we've got the body in earth and fire, and it means physical changes are coming, and we need to be ready for it, because we're going to be asked to embody our past. And these 2 stones are telling me, because they're both in the past also. Clarity is in fire and restate. And use ideas from your past that have helped in solutions before now. But the dilemma is not well defined. I think this is going to be the worst part of the first quarter. It's like we're fighting illusions or ghosts. We're not really fighting. We're fighting for our lives, and we're fighting for what sanity we can pull out of this. But we're just having a terrible time focusing on it. And your mind is between restate, which is think of how the situation, this is going to be a time when we have to look at it and think about it, figure out how to get out of it, because our mind is also in fire. And it's going to be the only way we're going to break free is if we break free from doing it like we did it before. There are going to be so many new things that come in. So many things are going to be handled in ways we never could have imagined they'd be handled. And I have a pretty good imagination, and even I'm feeling my imagination stretch. I think we can all feel it. We can feel something's coming. We're just not sure what we're going to be faced and what we're going to be looking at as a collective. And I mean a collective like the world. How can we move on to the better spot, but not let go of what's anchored us to who we think we are? And that's a real dilemma. And it scares me, because I'm like, but I like who I am. And my guides keep saying, you got to change the way you do some things. You got to change the way you do some things. So that's your first quarter, kids. I'm going to roll the second quarter, which is spring, which will start around March 21st and go till about June 21st, just like the solstices, just like the equinoxes. Okay, what's going to happen in the second quarter? Oh, good. We broke away from there. Air is also kind of, and it touches into future and present. Ooh, good. Okay, we're going to start with our spirit, which has gone back where the other stones were. And the spirit is telling us that it's transforming right now, but it's not yet finished. And thoughts of the past, if you go back and say, but it used to be, if you live in that, but it ought to be, but there, I was always told it was going to be this way forever. There's no more forever, everybody. There's a forever that's out there, but it's not the forever we were told to live with. And our body, our body's having a lot of fun. It's in the past. And what we're going to have to do to stay stable, and this is going to sound a little contradictory, but we have to hold on to the things that can make us feel somewhat secure. That doesn't mean thinking they're always going to be there, but look for guideposts that make you feel things that made you happier in the past. Things that brought you joy. Those sorts of things. And since it's springtime and the snow's starting to melt and the flowers are starting to bloom, go out and look at them. If you haven't looked at them in a while, they're still doing their thing. Our mind is in the path forward, which is really good. The mind is open to new signs and that are coming up. And final thoughts on the solutions are coming. So this is going to be the quarter where if you leave your mind open and you can allow yourself to enjoy, change is never easy. And this isn't just a little change, guys. This is a forever. We're never going back change. So it's going to be kind of like, it's better if you let it go, because one of the things I think we did do, speaking of dear sweet Jimmy Carter, was when we accepted Reagan back in, we let the devil back in the door. That's not that Reagan was the devil, but a lot of what things that could have helped all of us are not there. So now what's happening in air, which is our thoughts, and we have our clarity. It says, be sure your thinking's clear. Try to stay as clear as you can during this time. But this is great. We've got the grounding is between present and future. And when it's in the present, patterns are being purified right now. And even in this quarter, we're not, how come I came back to here? That's not what I intended to do. I must have hit the wrong key on the keyboard. Okay. The stone being here tells us that our values are being purified now. We're getting a chance to look at them, take them apart, because you're never going to change your values if you don't look at them. So there's going to be a lot of looking at, a lot of purifying of it. And then we're touching into the future, which is all of the gifts are not yet recognized. And the future really means that our grounding, our elements are in the future. And we have to remember that we're moving to a future state. So that's spring. I would sum up as, after all of us being all crowded down here in the corner, and our mind was up here, I think. Anyway, after all of us being crowded down there in the corner, we're breaking out. We're saying we can't live like that. We can't live with all of our energy and all of the parts of ourselves locked in a corner. So what's going to happen in the fall? This is going to be interesting. What's going to happen to the bigger collective in the fall? Woo! Aha. Our spirit is in the future. And it's telling us, be patient. The transmutation's not changed yet, but we're much closer than we were. And what we have is our bodies emerging from the earth and physical changes. We're we're going to feel physical changes. We're going to really feel ourselves heal. We're going to learn how on a cellular level to heal ourselves, how to concentrate and to work and to get the parts of our body and just the shell that has to go through this experience with all these other parts is getting stronger. And this little stone means clarification. Clarification comes from dealing with your past. So I think by fall we'll be well versed in what we're looking at. And so it's how are we going to clarify it? How are we going to deal with it? What are we going to do? How's it going to work out? And then this is great. And this stone kept showing up in water all last night. And that says that we need to let go of the limitations we've held ourselves to. And we also need to realize our thoughts are all important. That's the part of quantum mechanics that I used to always miss when Bill talked about it. Your thoughts have energy. Your energy pulls ideas in. And so your thoughts are all important to clarifying and letting go of the limitations we felt. So how's our clarity going to feel? Our clarity's we've had that show up, I think, before. Can't remember because of yesterday. But when clarity shows up in thoughts or air, be sure your thoughts are clear. So what this is telling us is this is the best part. In our future, we have our spirit, and it is changing. And be patient. The transmutation is taking place, but we have to let go of those limitations and deal with our own thoughts. And I'm not saying play happy thought. I'm saying redefine what you're looking at. This used to be my mother's thing. If you spill something on the floor, you can get all angry because you spilled something on the floor and waste a lot of energy. Or you can clean it up and say, oh my God, the floor's cleaner than it was. So this is going to be a time when we have to look at, if we spill it, we have to clean it up. And in the case of the collective, we've done a lot of spilling. So what's winter? What's the fall going to be like? What's it going to be like from September to December? What will be at the end of your letter? And now I'm looking out today, and this is what I see. Oh my God. Now we're all up here. We have broken through. I'm going to start with the mind being in the tree of harmony. We're open to radiant guidance. That's what it means. Our spirit is, when a stone hits in more than one space, you have to read all of them. So I'm going to read this one first because there's only two. Our values are still being purified, and we're still needing to learn how to recognize them. We're not there yet, but our body is coming out of the water, and it's going to, our body and the fact that our body got stronger. Remember when I said it was pulling itself together down here? When the fact that it got stronger means that we are more able to handle it and not get all shaky and not get all upset, not get all tied down. Our clarity is between the sacral chakra and the past. And it's the stone being here says, use the lessons that you've been learning in the sacral chakra. And it says creativity is now needed to harmonize your intentions. So that's really important. But this is the keystone. Spirit. And this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yay, 6 elements. And that's not a big stone. And it managed to hit right in the middle of all of them. And it starts with spirits transforming our thinking. And spirit is also telling us right now that grounding patterns are changing into grounding energies changing into long-term patterns. The earth, the transmutation is complete. When it hits there, it's complete. We're done. And when spirit hits in true, it says spirit is moving the plan forward with harmony. Oh, there could be a better reading for this. And when spirit's in the tree of life, actions, now this is an important lesson. Actions without spirit are empty. So make sure you've pulled in your heart when you're looking at how these things work that are going up here. And then you're in your crown chakra, and it says, spirit harmonizes all of our efforts. So, and spirits in the future, be patient. Be patient. It's all there. It just takes a while to be able to focus on how much is going on around us. So that, my dears, considering we started, wait a minute before I change, we all started with everybody all huddled up in this little corner, scared to move, not knowing what to do. And one thing, I don't remember which one was out on air, but that's where we started. And by the end of the year, we're all up here. We're all up in good spaces. We're all up in positive thoughts. When you're drafting your letter, think about the things that you can get rid of that can, or bring in that can help you expand, or the things you can get rid of and help you expand. And we just need, it's our perspective that needs to be changed, but it's also, we need to look at what's going on around us. One of the things is, for a long time, we didn't look at what's going on around us, and we didn't deal with all of the problems that we had, including the ones that we could make it an effective change on. Anyway, guys, that's how garden reading works. And yeah, I read it faster than most people. I read Tro faster than most people. So I'm just saying, anybody can do this. They're your stones. They carry your energy. It's your universe. It's your life. It's not mine. It's still, you got to remember, there's some constants in my life. It will probably be a very hot summer. I know we're going into 2 weeks of very cold weather in about a week and a half. So all those things are important. But what's most important is, for me, that you came and spent this time and shared it with me. And if it was a good idea, and you think it's a good idea to write yourself a letter, that so you can check in with yourself in a year from now, I think that's fun. I'm going to mark on my calendar, do your letter show a year from now. I have it in my phone. And I'm so happy so many of you came to join me. And I'm sorry Teri couldn't have been here with us. She would have had a lot of wonderful things to say about making all those kinds of shifts. But remember, the mind, stone, and water. If you can't think of anything else, think of that yellow stone on that blue triangle, saying it's time to let go of the limitations. And the limitations we have are the ones we've put on ourselves. And with that, no, I don't know who's going to be inaugurated. No, I do not know what shape our government's going to be in. All I know is it's going to be very, very different, and I don't think it's going to be worse than it was when we were not paying attention. What I think it's going to be, I'm writing in my letter, the first part when I started, how did I see where we'd come to? We were in such a much brighter place than even I could have ever imagined. So keep that in mind. We pull in what we think. And I will be on tomorrow taking questions. I'll put up the notice soon. And everybody have a good day. Pray for me. I'm doing a live Christmas party. Christmas party, New Year's party at a country club tomorrow. Isn't that fun? I've already checked it out. It's going to be good. It's going to be a nice thing. And I'm kind of looking forward to dealing with people one-on-one that are flesh and blood and in front of me. That's how I was trained. And maybe that's why I need to go do this now, because maybe I'm supposed to stay in the world I'm in. And y'all take care and think about writing that letter. It's easier than waking up every day and trying to journal or pull a card. Talk at you later. Bye.